Okay.
Welcome, 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 everyone. Come on in as we gather in the Lighthouse. We're very excited to have you all here, and we would love to know where you're tuning in from. I am currently in Salzburg, Austria, right?
I happen to be in the same country, the same village.
That's right. The same city it is. It's a city. We are in Salzburg, Austria, the place where Sound of Music was filmed. I don't know if anyone
Mhm.
saw that musical. I grew up with it. Yeah, very controversial now if we were to see it, right? And yet, when you think of all those beautiful sceneries and the mountains, it looks just like that. Still does, right? Right?
Yeah, still, for me, it was really amazing. Now I'm here to look at it. I never looked at it before. And say, oh, yeah, it's right here. And when we do a morning walks, we actually walking and seeing it. Yeah, I actually feel like we're living in a movie. Right.
We are a bit. And I
Yeah.
see we have a lot joining from the Netherlands. Welcome, welcome.
Mm.
It's good to have you here. And I'm seeing, yes, a lot of Dutch here. And I'm sure we have a few Austrian or German friends
Mhm.
too. Lily is joining us from Vienna. And yes, now it is 10 a.m. Central European time. Welcome to this very special conversation at the Lighthouse.
Our first
Welcome
one, by
to
the
the,
way.
that's right. Welcome to the Lighthouse, your safe place to relax and connect. And I am Joy, and I'm going to be your host for this conversation, which tends to inspire you to find your joy and more peace in life. And let me welcome my guest today, no one else but my husband, Dr. Roy Martina. Dr. Roy Martina is the holistic medical doctor who's been around for so many years. You have 40, 50 years of practice, right? And you have been researching so many different things that have now led you to be leading the quantum multiverse and doing all the fun trainings you're doing on manifestation to quantum hypnosis and a lot of other fun things that I'm sure we'll mention today. So, anything I missed?
Well, I think that why today is also important. It feels for me like a kickoff. After COVID, we went a little bit silent. We did a few things, but now we're really starting up. And I'm very, very delighted to be here. I'm also happy to see all the people from everywhere coming in and join this conversation because I really believe that we have together have a lot to offer. It's not only what I do, what you do, but when we combine, it's really powerful. And what I like most from everything is that we can respectfully disagree with each other. Most people believe, oh, they agree with everything, but we don't. And maybe today we'll show some of that, but it is in respect that we all are entitled to our own reality, and we want to share that with you as well. And
Yes, we
today
always say
I'm representing the man, the male.
woohoo for the men here. I'm sure we have some joining. And I'd like to give a big shout out to everyone who's listening right now, because we do know how special that is that you're making this time in your busy schedule to tune in and have a conversation that's maybe a little different than the conversations that we usually have. So thank you to everyone, and thank you for Roy for making this time. And let's start right out. I mean, are you the problem? Are you the problem right now, Roy? Because you bravely said you're representing the man here, right? And we did tease a little bit in our previous little video we made about, men and women and how the problems that we're facing right now will not be solved by the men. It's going to take the women stepping it up. So would you like to say more about that?
Yeah, I think I take full responsibility to have chosen to be a man in these, I would say, times of turbulence and more of that, because this is, as a man, it is a very difficult time for us as well. We often talk about patriarchy, matriarchy, all those kind of things, but I just came to realize that I thought I was doing well, and as a holistic doctor, I did very well. But when I start looking at this whole gender thing starting, just a couple of years ago, and that you had to redefine who you are as a male, I would say inhabitant of this planet, and then you look at the history, and you can only then reflect on how am I still representing some of the old stuff? And what do I need to change in order to become the man that belongs in this time, to be part of the change? And I just realized that I had some old ways. I've had a very, I would say, normal kind of education where the male was front and center and was dominant, and my mother was just a mother. But I'm not saying that, but that's how it was considered. She was just a mom. And like a mom is almost nothing. It's just something, it's like a secondary. You
Well,
don't ever get to the
meaning
mom.
that she didn't have another job, adding to
Exactly,
the mom
exactly.
of, what was it, 8
Well,
children?
yes, 8 children. So I always say she was a professional mom, totally underpaid for the job she did. And in the end, I respect her more now than ever, because now I realize how it must have been for her living in that time where she was a nobody, just a mom. And how times are drastically changed now. Married with you, you are definitely not just a mom. So that really has put a lot of things in me to look at myself in with new eyes, and to ask myself the question, am I the man that I need to be in this time, not only as a partner, but also in the bigger picture? Because many
Mm.
men, I'm a role model for many people, but I've never realized that I can also be a role model for men, and I need to change certain things. I had many requests from men, from, do you want to give a man a workshop? And I still feel a little intimidated because I'm still in the process to redefine what it really means for me, and change
I
many.
like how you've said this redefinition of the gender role, because right now I see we have a lot of females joining in, and I'm sure there are many here who's thinking, oh my goodness, finally a man is saying this, and I wish my husband would be thinking about these sort of things too. And just to put it in perspective, you're nearly 70, right? So I always say you were one of the first wavers, the first wave being the ones Dolores Cannon, for instance, describes in her book as the first ones who came with a different sense of consciousness, the job already to start this procedure of bringing in the shift. So the first wavers were people who are kind of your age right now. So my question for you is, what parts of you have you had to redefine, or what was the biggest shift that was necessary for you to be able to have this introspection and ask these questions?
Well, it's quite interesting because my father was my role model, and my father was a typical, I would say, model of the old man system. And I loved my father. I put him on the pedestal. He was the one I was striving to be. And then one day I woke up and said, "Holy shit, this is not the type of man that is going to be to change it. This type of man that's part of the problem, not with a bad intention. He just did what he had to do." So I had to look at my own vulnerability, for example, my female side, also with you, to be much more being able to be okay with my feelings and talk about them. They're two different things.
So
To first be,
it felt kind of vulnerable to even talk about feelings, because that's something that was associated with weakness and more the female, right? So we used to categorize, or just unconscious. These are all unconscious programmings usually, but we used to, at least in the patriarchy or in this old system, would see femininity and emotional stuff, right, as a weakness. So are you saying that shifted for you, that you were able to see more the gifts of the emotions?
I would say that I had to redefine what vulnerability means to me. And my redefinition of that is that it is strength. It is strength to deal with things that in your life that don't feel right, the things in your life that, you have still conflicts with. And so step one is to be able to embrace that part of you, and then to talk about it, and then find healing for it, and being in my position as I would say, quite famous doctor, and in my old ego used to think I've done it, I made it, and then to
I know it all,
realize,
right?
yeah, to realize that yes, I'm good in my job, but that doesn't reflect back on who I am. So it are two separate things. You can be an expert and great in doing something and be a role model, but then you need to really look at that. And you know, I know vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness, because it takes courage. I cannot speak for women. I can only speak for myself. It takes courage to appear to be weak in the model that you've been brought up with, and it's still being maintained by a lot of my friends. Remember, I not only grew up with a father, I also grew up in a martial arts world, in a macho world, where I was the end of the food chain. I became a world champion, and you don't become a world champion by being a pussycat. You know what I'm saying? You
I like
have
that
to.
you call it pussycat now. I know that used to be a different word, but okay.
Yeah, I'm learning. So in that also, I need to look, hey, these are my friends. So, and then I remember one time we had this discussion and you said, Roy, you really need mature male friends. So, and right now I feel very, very happy that I found these friends where we all can be vulnerable, right? Where we
That
all
must be
can talk
quite
about.
new, isn't it? Isn't that a very new kind of setup if guys get together and start talking about real stuff? So not about the haves, but about how I am. What's that like?
It was I was lucky because I met some guys that I didn't see that they also shifted their roles, that we can openly talk about everything, and that we can even say each other we love you. And let's say 10 years ago, me telling a guy I love you would be like, nah, it's
The
not done.
homophobia would have kicked full in, right? Admit it.
That's not done. And so I was very lucky to attract the kind of man. And if I look back at some of my old friends, and you know, one of them, Roberto Ray, for example, from Italy, there was a different type. We were not vulnerable with each other. We were really trying to even beat each other in being macho, if you understand what I'm saying. And being in a privileged position as a teacher, I now realize a lot of the things in the past that I didn't realize about. You know, that
Like what?
it's you know, it's to be a teacher is not only a privilege, but it carries a big responsibility because people put you on a pedestal and people, you know, and what happens, especially in a community in which I'm teaching, where 80% is women, is that you know you become attractive because you represent a role that for a lot of women is a trigger because they're dealing with the authority figure, which is often their father, and at the same time they have this kind of attraction and love relationship, like trying to making up for what they missed in the father
Well,
daughter
we've
relationship.
talked about that a lot, haven't we? How being
Mhm,
on any stage, so anybody being on
mhm,
any stage is automatically a projection field, right? So
mhm,
if the audience projects everything
mhm,
they have onto that being, that's just so. So part of, I think, what is the beauty of what we do is that we have to keep ourselves accountable. We have to keep
mhm,
also, you know, being willing to stay in that role of a student to be taught by others. So
mhm,
that's why I, for instance, love all my mentors and my golden circle that I have, because that's what we do for each other. We're those
mhm,
clean mirrors. So I like how you said that. I want to get back to you were saying, you know, this beautiful connection that you have with your now new found friends that are male, and this ability to be vulnerable. So I remember that in one of our relationship coaching sessions that we had with our coach, she gave us these 3 things that every man needs. And when I heard them, I was like, yes, and every woman too. But it was so nice that she actually spelled it out. Do you
mhm.
remember what it was?
Yeah, one was male friends.
That's
To
right.
put it
Number one
right.
thing, every man needs guy friends. So if
Mhm,
you do not have any male friends and you're a guy, this is the time to go out and make friends. You know, like you did in kindergarten. It's
mhm,
basically go out. Do you want to be my friend? Do you want to go do things with each other?
mhm,
So that's rule 1 or
mhm.
tip number 1 that we have. Tip number 2, do you remember that, right?
I don't. I remember something of having your own cave, something
That's
like
right.
your own
Every
space.
man needs a man cave. So that doesn't matter if it's a little corner somewhere that's just yours, or you have your, I don't know, work shed or the basement area. Just needs something that's your space where you get to do what you want to do. And if that is playing around with some tools, or I don't know, painting stuff or fixing stuff, or I don't know, drinking your beer, whatever it is, hanging out with your male friends, then you need to do that, because men need something when men go into a process. So let's say us women have successfully triggered our man. That does happen, doesn't it, right?
Sometimes.
We're pretty good usually at finding those buttons. So let's just assume there's this imaginary woman who's just pushed the buttons on her guy, right? She's feeling all kinds of emotions, and she's in some kind of state. She's pushed the button, and now the other guy, so her guy, is starting to have his feelings and emotions and thoughts and things on that. And you do have that as guys, don't you? Even if you don't always show them.
Of course.
Good. So let's say he's dealing with all this stuff, right? Then the best thing the guy can do is go into his cave and go think, because that's what his brain wants to go do, because the male brain is wired to go figure it out. But here's what us women then usually do. We don't let them go into the cave. We will run after them. We'll start knocking on the cave and say, hey, there's one more thing you need to know. What's more? Right? I will go at it. And the guy's in the cave saying, just woman, just zip it. I right? So here's a tip that you can work with right away. Next time you trigger each other, let the guy go in his guy cave. You go do what's good for you, and then reconvene. Often helpful, isn't it, Ray?
Yeah, and not only that, I think if you go back in history and we go back to the time that men were still hunters, which is still in our DNA, is that for us, it is not about talking. Even when you're hunting, you having time for yourself. I was always wondering when I see men fishing, what is it with fishing? You don't catch much, but you're sitting there. That's just time reflecting with yourself. And I think that we got so busy in life that we don't take the time anymore. We're completely focused outside and on other things. And I think that has done me very, very well to have my cave and to just have me time, to have time where I, just process my things. And anytime I'm triggered, if it's by you or by someone else, I call it my processing time. And that's where, for me, it is very important, because I have this rule that someone can only trigger me if there's a wound inside of me, if there's something wounded in me. And my job is to find the wound. And most of my wounds are, believe it or not, of course, in childhood, while I thought I was never wounded in childhood. I have the perfect childhood. I mean, we were not rich, we were practically poor, but the childhood was not bad, right? We had a lot of brothers and sisters. There was always something going on. And then I reflected back and I saw that as a child, I used to sit with my dog and just stare to the horizon, just having the time. And that really helped me to create more me time, to say, hey, this is natural for me. And I got so distracted by life that I didn't do it anymore. Some people meditate, which is great. And I love that. I do that too. But reflecting time, looking at yourself in your role and at what's happening and asking myself the big question, what kind of man do I want to be in these times? What is my desired role as a husband, as a father, and as a teacher, as a friend, and on and on and on. And actually that helped me change a lot. And I'm so happy now, for example, also the new role I have with my daughter, that I can really sit with her. We have fun time together. When she was little, it was easy. We went to the movies and you do kids stuff. I have no idea how to deal with a 13-year-old daughter.
It's a thing.
I'm totally like swimming in a new pond. I don't have an idea, but I'm getting to know how to deal with her, how to get into her world, how to talk with her, what's okay, what's not okay. And that fascinates me. And to see that she loves that she is really checking in. When are we going again? When do we
Hey, us women, can we just have a quick hand raise? Which woman here loves attention? We all do. That's what pussy thrives on. So you just naturally told tip three, and that tip three for all guys and girls here is you need time every single day that is dedicated to nothing but play. It has no specific outcome. It's just free time, time to play, playtime. We all need that, whether we're 3 or 103. So that just to close that circle. And I love how you said how interesting it is and how challenging often it is to build connection with a teenager, because I'm sure we have a lot of parents here too who might be facing that same problem, or grandparents, or yeah. So what would you have said have you learned from your process of deepening your connection with your 13-year-old daughter? What are the do's and what are the don'ts?
First of all, it is to be interested in her as a person, to dive into the world and her world. And the way I've been doing that, I really enjoy, is I'm kind of interviewing her for a book. So this way, I'm showing truly genuine interest. How do you see this? Well, why do you do this? Why do you, and even if sometimes she's fantasizing an answer, I know that she's getting it from somewhere. It's a kind of channeling. And it's fascinating to look through her eyes. So that for me, that's been a real strong connection with that. And the second thing is to get her involved in the process, for her to feel the leadership in the process, not that I am the one. So I'm asking her, where would you like to go? Now, she likes Starbucks, so let me go to Starbucks. And then we're having a fun time there. No, it's so cozy. So that's very important. So I think as a father, it's very important to create a safe environment for whatever daughter or son, that you have to have conversations that are different. It shouldn't be superficial things, right? And to take the time. You don't go right away to the most complex and then thing questions, but you build it up. You need to build up the rapport. You need to get the trust, and you need to I call it plant some seeds. Like is this something we can talk about or not? And actually, not as of course I know my daughter, but as a 13-year-old, I get to know my daughter again in a different phase of her life. And what I realized, that we take so much things for granted because we think we know, but I'm discovering a lot of things that I didn't know, I couldn't see before. So I think that's the most important tip, is to create safety, to get involvement, to share the responsibility, not for you to be the one leading, but to give her the sense that she's leading herself, to co-lead together, and then to guide it in that process. And when the time is right, you can ask questions that go deeper. So, for example, she has a very dear friend of her. So I'm not going right away in there, but I'm tiptoeing around it because I know it's very sensitive for her, because she's defining also a role in that, how to deal with a male friend and all of that. And also to be there and to say, if you have any questions about anything, I'm here for you, and that's to build up that relationship. I think the moment I know I'm relating to my daughter, but a moment a kid goes into puberty, it is finding its new identity as well. So we need to respect that. We need to respect that they may push against us, that because they need to redefine who they are, but and that's doing by, okay, I'm not you, I'm not this, and I need to find myself. And very, very important in this, and especially with a daughter, I see that now, is to accept that there will be mood swings. That one day you'll be loved to death, the next day you'll be treated like the plague, and be avoided at all costs. Every word you say is a hand grenade that's going to explode back. Yeah. And you cannot take that personally. It is not about you, it's about our process. And to be holding the space that it's safe for her even to go to her deepest points of despair and whatever she's going to.
Thank you. And that feeds so beautifully into adult relationships too, doesn't it? We were just talking about that at Terra Nova, how for anybody to surrender, that person needs to feel safe first. So it's all very well telling people, I know what to do, just do this, do what I'm doing, and then you'll be fine. No, first we need to get people to trust us, right? So that was what you were saying about building rapport, creating that safe place to say, it's okay for you to be who you are here. That's why I love these conversations at the Lighthouse that aim to do that. This is a safe place. And for it to be a safe place, you have to have permission to voice who you are and voice all your opinions. We always say you're all entitled to your own opinions, but you're not entitled to your own truth, right? So amongst all those opinions, we aim to find truth. And that's what I personally love about Grace. One of the things I love about her so much is that she's such a truth seeker. And when an astrologist explained this to me just recently, when I was consulting her for advice to how to help Grace, because I was noticing, last year it was a little tricky in school and stuff. And she said, yeah, this is who she is. And she's a truth seeker. And that, Joy. And she said, you too, you made a pact on this. You made a pact to go through this together. So yes, it's going to be stormy. Yes, it's going to be passionate, but that's what you two are about. And that gave me such peace. And I believe that, there's also that truth seeker in you. And that's what I love when we have family conversations, even, at Easter, 13 people at the table. And there was a vivid and fun conversation going on with lots of different opinions. And they were all allowed to be next to each other. They were not having to replace each other. And I think when we learn to do that in adult relationships, and I think we learned another good tip there from our coach, didn't we? And we're going to share that in a moment, is what do you do when you're in a relationship and one person is having a crisis? One person is in a super emotional, triggered, state, right? How do you respond to that best? And she gave us such a simple thing, didn't she? Do you remember what it was?
No, you go.
Okay, I'll go. So you do your thing. You go into your state, please. Go on, do it. Show us. What does that look like?
What state?
Yeah, just do some state when you're triggered.
I will sit.
You're gonna go in the angry one. Okay. Yeah, right. And then you're gonna say something nasty, say something mean. Go on. You always
are shouting at me, yelling and making me feel bad and saying negative things about me.
Right. And now my role is to say, oh, honey. Can we all practice that? Could we just all go and say, oh, honey, oh, honey, right? And that can be an icebreaker. It can be that crucial pattern interrupt before we go into defending. Well, that's not true. I don't always yell at you. What nonsense is that? Then he would say, oh, yes, you do. And what's more, blah, 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 right? And then we become these two coyotes kind of at each other, and nobody actually is heard. And no state has got better. In actual fact, the state, his and my state, will most likely be what? Pretty much the same. So that's where it's so helpful to have a little tool like the, oh, honey. And, by just saying it, you're training yourself to go into compassion. And that takes us back to that courage that it takes to be vulnerable. And that's not denying how I might feel about all that he's saying, but I'm just saying maybe also, oh, honey, to myself. And saying, oh, let's take a breath on this.
Yeah, it's so interesting that a lot of people talk about self-love, which is crucial, is to learn how to create that. And when we look back at the male thing, finding your cave, taking time, that's a way of self-love too. And then when we triggered, that's when we need self-love the most. That's when we need, the way I do it often is to connect with my inner child. So what part of me is really wounded now, and to sit with that part of me until I can, let that part of me feel safe, and to start the healing process. And from that, you go back to compassion, because the first reaction is to blame the other for what you're feeling. But you're feeling this way because the feeling was always there already. What trigger is actually remembering something that is wounded. That's a trigger most of the time, right? So to go back to the wound and to take time to really sit with yourself and give you that self-love, actually, that your inner child, your wounded child needs, it leads to self-healing. And then when you step out, you're looking at those situation a different way. And actually, I can often now say thank you, because the trigger give me the opportunity to heal parts of myself. And then it's so much easier to step into compassion, because often a trigger is caused by another person being triggered in her own right and good. And then you can come back from a different perspective and not from the blaming and guilt and shame that you can feel as a child.
So I think we can fairly say, just in case this has not been obvious up until now, that a healthy relationship is not free of conflict. A healthy relationship is able to navigate conflict in a way so that we can build strength together. And just to explain that a little bit, I want to just describe the conflict cycle, because this conflict cycle is the same whether we're dealing with adult relationships or with children or teenagers or whatever. And that is that in a conflict, we have this trigger, right? This trigger that then creates a disconnection. So beforehand, we're connected, right? We're in a relationship. Then the trigger comes and we disconnect. And then from that disconnect, we move into the reconnect, right? Until we find connection again. And I think that's just nice to know that that is a normal cycle. So whenever we notice a disconnection, we can just say, oh, I notice, I feel disconnected right now. I need to go in here to figure out what created this disconnection within me. And then I can go into the reconnect and say, hey, you know what, honey? I discovered the following. When you said yada, 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 I felt yada, 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 because what I really needed in that moment was yada, yada, yada. And then you could even make a request. So you could say, could you explain to me what upset you, or what was the trigger with you? Can we talk about this? And in that reconnect phase, that's when we're learning. That's when we're actually coming in with that sense of awe and not knowing as a child, of saying, you know, tell me, explain this to me. What happened there? And I think we're getting, you know, better and better at doing that with each other, aren't we, Roy?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that the word safety keeps coming back and back, to be feeling safe, to be you in the good and the bad. I mean, that you can really express everything in yourself, and to have the commitment to each other that no matter what happens, that you always go back to the reconnection. It may take time. You know, we often say we don't go angry to bed, so you want to quick reestablish that. Sometimes you just need a little bit more me time to reflect.
At least we go to bed neutral now. I think we've kind of reconsidered never go to bed angry, because sometimes it just happens that way, that things happen in the evening, right? And then you're still angry and you haven't found the resolution yet. Then we've said, okay, it's okay to take a time out, but at least use that time out to settle ourselves again, to become neutral, to release the anger for ourselves, so that when we reconnect, we no longer have that vibe running the main show, right?
Absolutely. And my safe zone is to snuggle with you. So once I forget everything else, it's so hypnotic. So it is good to have the safe zone in every relationship. And I think that the basis of everything, and I would like just to jump also to the more spiritual level, is that we're living in a specific time right now, a very, I would call it interesting, but also challenging time, because of the changes happening so fast, and so many changes are still on the invisible range. Yes, we notice the technology is changing very, very fast, faster than ever. But there's also other changing happening in all the different, I would say, collective fields around the planet. The planet is in a shift right now. We have now the shift in the gender roles and all of that. We have a new generations coming up that are radically different than the previous one. We thought we were radical. Now it's even more radical. So we living in chaos, pure chaos on so many different levels at the same time. And also, more than ever, we have been distracted away from ourselves. So by social media, by TV, by whatever is happening around us. We are totally distracted, and it's for the first time that you can really say that we have a collective ADHD going on right now. And but it's happening in a bigger frame. And I think that rapidly more and more people are waking up right now to what they are and who they want to be. So we're starting to see that the role that we are playing are not fixed. We can change that. We have the free choice to decide that we want to play the game in a different way instead of being the angry, wounded, frustrated, lonely person that some people can be. Yeah.
So, and we have a comment in the chat saying, yeah, it's all very well, talking about conflict and healthy relationships. I get that part. But what if I'm dealing with a person I'm in a relationship with someone who's seriously not well? So I don't know, is traumatized, has PTSD, has paranoia, is mentally unstable. How is that different then? Or what do I need to know then? So I think one thing I want to be very, very clear on is if you are in a relationship that is threatening your life, where you are physically being abused, then it is time to get out of that and seek help, seek professional help to get yourself into a safe place. That's rule number one. But if we're in a relationship where it's not a life-threatening thing, we're not talking about a deeply toxic, abusive relationship, we're talking about a relationship where one partner is not well, how do I, as the healthier one in that moment, how do I support without sacrificing myself?
Okay. You see, we already spoke about compassion. Everybody, no matter the state, is coming in with quite some baggage, right? So that's one part. We all come with our baggage into any type of relationship. That's a given. The question is, do you have to take responsibility for the baggage of the other person, or do you have to take responsibility for your own baggage? That's number one. Number two is you have chosen subconsciously, consciously, or in other way to be in this relationship, right? So you made that choice in the past. Maybe the person has changed since you made the choice. So again, you have to make a new choice. Do I still want to be in this relationship? And if it's a yes, it's a full committed yes, it means that you have to shift how you handle the state of the other in a different way. Number one is that you cannot take it personal. It is the other with their baggage. You have chosen to be with a person with quite a heavy baggage. That's number one. Number two, it will invite you to have more compassion, even more, for that person that's suffering. Now, the problem is, in general, in these type of situation, is that one partner feels helpless, the one part powerless, that it's the other, and there's nothing I can do. The question is that true? What is your role even on a spiritual level to be in that relationship? And there are some tools that if the baggage of the other is projected on you, is triggering you, we're back to square one. Once you are triggered, it is your responsibility. The reason the other one is triggering you, that's not your problem. Your problem is how you are dealing with the other person. And that's where your growth lies. Me being studying, let's say, quantum and spirituality for a long time, I've come to realize that everything is a choice, right? And we only see the tip of the iceberg. We only see what is visible, but the reality is there are many more levels to that relationship than we will ever know. I will always assume there's a deep karmic connection as well, that the other is always serving me, right? So in my relationship with you, I can put a lot of stuff on you, but all the stuff that is wounded in me are being served by you.
It's what a relationship will bring out, right? A relationship that really goes deep will bring out all those deep things. And right now, with the planet going through what it's going, all this deep stuff is coming up. So know that as well. To the lady who was asking the question, we're seeing these kind of things in a lot of relationships because a lot of people are literally losing their minds. And that's why, you know, we're on this mission to help everyone help themselves, to keep finding your center, to keep going back to, okay, so what's my job here? What can I do for my state? Because the truth is we can all really only take care of ourselves. And when we've taken care of ourselves, it's easier to take care of the others. It's the, you know, oxygen mask and the airplane thing. You've got to start here. And the other thing that I would give as a tip to the one asking is go to your sisters. Get support from other people. You don't have to do this alone. If you're in a relationship that's been really, really challenging right now, get into a support group with other women who maybe are in similar situations or in different situations where you can feed off each other. Come to the Goddess Circle. That's the reason why we meet every single week, because that's how we support each other in sisterhood. And there we can be clean mirrors with each other. We do processes every single week to shift beliefs, to release trauma, and use it as an assignment. You got this guy for whatever reason, you chose him. So now this is how I approach these sort of relationships. And it doesn't matter whether it's an intimate one or a business relationship. I've started asking the question, how can I make this relationship the best it can be? And if we start looking at it that way, it's fun to start upgrading all relationships, because sometimes one relationship can get so overwhelmingly important that we can get a little obsessive about one relationship and kind of neglect all the other ones that we have. And I've noticed that by taking my focus off that one relationship that's really bugging me and placing my attention on all the other relationships that are working really well, and feeding those, it feeds back into me so I feel better. And then I can go back into that other relationship, give it my focus and attention again, but coming from a more nurtured place, rather from being in that kind of victim dependent place of, oh my God, what's that person going to do next? And how am I going to respond to that next? Take yourself out of that buzz and take times out of, you know, right there, I'm actually urging you to disconnect politely. You know, say, you know what, I'm going to go figure out stuff for myself right now. You're invited to figure out your stuff. Let's reconvene tomorrow, in 3 days, in 3 weeks, whatever feels right for you. And take a time to really figure your stuff out, and do that with sisters and do that with help. And I'm sure you'll find a lot of blessings in exactly that tricky relationship. If I look back into my previous relationships, the trickier the were, the more I learned. Not something I would recommend to continue as a pattern, right? We are also allowed to learn in an easeful and graceful way. But, you know, if you signed up for that in the past, make peace with it. It's been teaching you. So now it's time to integrate all those learnings and to, as we've just started this conversation, to redefine what do I want now and really write it out. I definitely give that tip to everyone. Write a letter to yourself of what your relationships should look like and what you want them to look like and what your desires are there. And by you voicing them and writing them out, you're sending a very, very clear message to the universe. So
yeah, and I want to add that we all need to have our power tools, and that's been part of our mission, is to give people the tools in order to deal with the stuff and to make your life lighter. We often suffer unnecessary, and there's so many wonderful tools to, for example, what you do in your Golden Goddess Circle is to teach people how to heal their traumas, you know, and so if you don't have a toolbox, you will feel helpless, right? And so you need to have a toolbox you can depend on. I have toolboxes that I can depend on so I can deal with myself. And one of the more favorites is tapping, which is a simple thing to do. We have a 5-point tapping system. You can learn that and bring your emotions to a level that you can manage them and process them and get the healing process started. And there's so much more. It's not complicated. We don't need psychiatrists and psychologists to deal with our wounds. There are simple ways to do that. And I think that's lacking in many people. That's why they're stuck into victimhood instead of using these triggers as growing, healing, and becoming wiser. I think that's the missing part for most people.
So why don't we go ahead and tap underneath our collarbones right now as we activate our kidney meridians. And now we're going to do something funky. So if you're in a good, safe place, you could go ahead and you could close your eyes. And then you could roll them up as if you're looking through the crown of your head. And then you say, even if I don't know how to create healthy, loving, wise, amazing relationships, all I do know is it is so now. And I'm fulfilled. I delete all that could stop me. And I download everything I need to do so now, to open my heart, to have the courage to love and be loved like never before. Thank you. I am so courageous. And then you can open your eyes, stop tapping, and just feel, what did that do for you? That might be your best pattern interrupt. The next time you feel a little scared or anxious or worried or angry or whatever, you could just tap and breathe and remember who you are. You did something else just now that was also very interesting, is you closed your eyes and you rolled them up. And that was a combination of tapping and the crystalline command, a very powerful way to set your intention. So next time you convene with your significant other or any other person, you could go ahead and before you meet them, set your intention of what is it that you want from this relationship, from this connection right now. And I swear to God, if you do that and you take those few seconds to set your intention first, you will be so surprised at how that conversation unfolds and how much more ease is in there because you gave that clear direction first. By rolling your eyes up, you brought your brain into the theta brainwave zone, which is one of the most relaxed brainwave zones you can be in. So it's a great way to train your brain to reset, to go into a calmer mode. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Roy?
Yeah, I would also say is that when we roll up our eyes, we bring the left and the right brain in a synergy. So we're not in one side or the other. We're not in the emotional or the logical side or whatever. And that is where we open ourselves to the solutions. That's where we go in what's called the dream state, the state of infinite possibilities. And that's very, very important. What people need to know, and this comes, of course, from a medical training, is that even we consider emotions to be normal, we create emotional habits. So we have a habitual way of doing emotions. And that is wired in our brain. It is a wiring in the brain. So it's not just a trigger and a response, it's autopilot. If we want to change the autopilot, we need to give the brain a new way to do that. And a new way to do it, we start first with imagining, how do I want to be in this situation? And I think that every day that you've been triggered, before you go to sleep would be a good time for you to say, okay, I've been triggered, but in an ideal situation, if I would really be in my power, how would I react differently? How would I respond differently? And the more you ponder that, the more you imagine that, you are creating new synaptic combinations in your brain to create the new you. You know, you have to do the work. And there's no way that you can become the powerful person that you're born to be, that has been taken away from you, if you do not do the work. And doing the work needs also to have a structure. It shouldn't be at random. You should stick to something for a while. If we do tapping, you don't do tapping once. You want to make it part of your daily routine. So you want to make part of your daily routine is also the person I want to be. How do I want to be in these situations? And when you start pondering on that, imagining that, visualizing that, stepping into that as if it's already real, then you're shifting and changing in the most gracious way possible.
Thank you for that. That was beautiful. So we're almost at the end of our beautiful conversation. Can you believe that? This hour has kind of zoomed past. So I want to ask you the following question. So let's say you were not married to me. Let's just imagine you've just got some other wife, right? For now, what would you tell this wife about the Golden Goddess Retreat that is taking place in June? How would you as a man feel about that?
All right. Okay, number one, I know I would gift it to her.
You would? You'd
I
give
would
her
gift
the
it to
retreat.
her.
You'd say, honey, go
I
get
would
go.
I would definitely do it. And I always tell some of my friends, listen, you should give your wife a present that will benefit her and you. That's the one. So it's love. You want her to be in her most powerful state, but it's also a gift to yourself. You're giving and you're receiving at the same time. And also, you're going to realize that once she comes back home, it is not the same wife that left,
Well, that
because there
might
will
feel
be a
a little
major
scary
shift.
to some guys, don't you think?
That might be in that sense. But if you're married to that wife that wants to grow, you've made that choice too. And so the two things you want to, it will benefit you if she's more in a powerful state, which in a sense also creates a new state for you. You have to deal with the other person, and that brings you into another state where you have to look at yourself again. So where I have a yes woman and I sent her to you and she comes back fully in her power. Okay, I have to deal with that, right? It's me. I have to deal with it.
Well, the good
So
news is there are already men out there who are doing that. So Yolanda's just said Robert gifted her the retreat. So thank
yes.
you, Robert. We're praying for you anyway. He has an operation coming up. So we're all praying for Robert to seem really healthy and safe. And thank you for sending your wife. So you'd send your wife. Why
Yeah,
do
and
you believe women should? What's the thing about the retreat? And I wasn't going to ask you this question, but here we are.
no, sure.
What's
No,
good about the goddess retreat?
I'm happy you're asking me this question, because it's something that I believe that especially the women who do not see the power that you're bringing to them. Number one, I can see you as a person, and we've been together for over 12 years. I've seen you coming fully into who you are today, and I know that you have so much to give, and I know that every woman who goes to this retreat will benefit on many more levels, because the way you work, I would say there are three parts to it. So, one part is just being you. You are what. If I would make a T-shirt for you, it would be what you see is what you get. That's one thing. That's number one. You're just being you, relentless you, and that's super powerful. Then you have the visible part. Obviously, when the women come into this retreat, there's a co-creation. You have a structure. I know how you work. You have ideas where you want to go, but you leave enough space that it's a co-creation. So everyone in the group will get the maximum out for them. That's the visible part. But the part that is not visible is what I call the magical part. That's what happens on an energy level that is not visible. And that what continues after the retreat. So the retreat, I see like a safe place for women to step into the new role. But after that is the most important part, because when you return, you also have for them to save net to come back, and that's the golden cycle part where you convene with women. So that is also the aftercare. And I, as a professional teacher for many years, can bluntly say that's the part that's missing in most of our workshops. This is the part that miss. We prepare people and we throw them back into the river and say go swim and goodbye. And that is what in your case is, I say it's perfect. And I'm not
I
saying
never
that
thought of that. Thank you for saying that.
I'm not saying this as a husband. I'm saying this as someone looking from the outside in, because I can totally detach and be 100% neutral on that. And for me, I would do that anyway. But I see that. I see all these things, the co-creation, and then the aftercare, and all the healing that happens. I would say anyone who has the opportunity, even if you have to take a big, I would say, challenge, get all the things arranged. We know how difficult life is with all the busyness. But the question is, do you really love yourself enough to give this to yourself if you don't have a beautiful partner that's giving it to you? Are you willing to invest in yourself? And
Mm.
I would say without any doubt that this is a great opportunity for any woman to participate in this. And as I said myself, as I'm now embracing more my feminine side, that I should have the right to attend too, because I'm part of the feminine
Ah.
too.
Well, now you've put yourself on the spot, because you do know that currently I am scouting 3 men. I need 3 men
Is that true?
for a very special circle that we will be having at the retreat. And that is a truth circle, right? So we're going to have a truth circle where we are inviting 3 awakened conscious men to come in. They're going to be completely blindfolded. They don't have to dress up as women. I've taken that out because I know that would have been too triggering for you. You can dress up as yourself. You're just going to be blindfolded, and you're going to be sitting amongst these amazing women, 60 women, and you're going to be answering the questions that these women have for you. Why are you blindfolded? Because of the safety. Because when women know that they are not being seen, but they can just ask the question and stay anonymous, then it's much easier for them to ask the questions that really interest them. So I have a waiting list, and I am going to let intuition and Crystalline channel which ones are the right ones, but I would love you to be one of them, Roy.
I'm honored.
Would you do that?
Of course I would.
That's
It's scary. It's scary. It's scary. I've never done anything closely like that before, but I'm a warrior. I can do it. I
love
love
that. And you did it in front of so many witnesses right now. So everyone listening right now, you are the very first to know that, yes, Roy Martina will be there for a short session or however long it takes to have this beautiful truth circle. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. Now, I'd like you to give us a shout out about an event that's coming up for you and your male friends, where you're talking about another very triggering topic, right? Money. Manifestation. So tell us about manifestation. What's happening? Where is it? And how can people join?
Yeah, number one, to why, why I'm doing this, because I'm not the money coach. I help people to become successful by overcoming the sabotage. In my research, I found that there are, several reasons why people get sick. As a medical doctor, that's what interests me the most. And it's all related to conflicts. So the biggest conflict is the conflict of boundaries, so that we don't have clear boundaries. Is the reason that a lot of people have a seed that when it's combined with other things will create disease. The second one is self-worth. Who do we believe we are? And that when we believe we are less than others, or we deserve less than others, create a huge conflict that lasts lifelong until we resolve. And the third one is basically financial struggle, and that's based on something called now with a new term, the upper limit, that is only a certain amount of success that we think that we can have, that we can handle, that we can cope with. And so we've been dealing with all the other stuff, but I never really dealt with the money issue, because I always thought this is not my territory, it's not my thing, it's not something that I would feel like this is my expertise to deal with.
Well, we've done abundance workshops before, but it's a very different thing if you really put it on the topic of money, right? People feel very triggered. So you're doing a workshop, right?
Yeah. So what happens is, find your male friends. So I have now 2 groups of male friends, and so one group we're focusing on what I call manifestation, a kind of play of words on manifestation. The amount of reactions, I mean, like I triggered the devil himself. That's number one, which means we're hitting on deep wounds that people really have a struggle there. So in June, we're giving this workshop in Holland. We'll have it also online. And we want as many people to really break through the sabotage, 12th to 14th of June.
So
And it can
it's
also
right
be online.
after the retreat. So we have the
Yeah,
Golden Goddess Retreat, which is the
great. And
9th
today,
to 11th of June.
right.
If anybody would like to reserve their seat there, we're only 60 seats available. Go to joymartina.com and there you will find the Golden Goddess Retreat. We're teaching in Dinglish, so a mix out of English and German. And then you'll give your dates. It was the 12th
12
to
to 14. Yes, we have
12th to 14th of
manifestation.
June, we have Manifestation in Harlem that's going to be online and in person. Where's in person? Where's the location?
It's going to be in a certain part of Hong Kong called Venlo. And we have it in English and Dutch. So people can, online will be, people can choose also to have it only in English. So it should be available for everyone. And right now, online it's only 99 euros. We want a lot of people just to join.
And where do people sign up?
They can just go to quantummultiverse.world. They will see it immediately there and they can sign up. And yeah, I can dare to make a promise that after this, you will be a magnet and for wealth, and you will no longer sabotage yourself. You will step out of the conflict of I don't deserve, and you'll step into the, I say, into the infinite possibilities that you're born with.
So I have the perfect solution for everyone. We're going to send our guys to manifestation, and as generous women, we're going to invite our guys for 99 euros. There you go. Go make some more money, my love. And all the girls, let's gather in Salzburg, Austria. It'll cost the guys a little more because we need feeding, right? We're going to have great organic food there. It's $5.99 for 2.5 days. We're going to have an epic time. And thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's 11 o'clock. We've done 1 hour of yabbering. And I do hope it was enjoyable to you. Thank you so much for all the beautiful reactions in the comments. We will be sending the replay out and then you're free to share it. You'll also find it on YouTube. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with you again. We have another conversation at the Lighthouse together, don't we, my love?
Yes, we started the series.
We're going to be meeting again on the 26th of April, again at 10 a.m. I know not everybody can make that time, but it fits our schedule so well, and you can always watch the replay. And it's so special when we make this special time throughout the day. So 26th of April, 10 a.m., we're going to be talking about, do we give in or do we give up, or neither? Let's talk again soon. Thank you so much. Mille baci, 1000 Küsse. Wir haben euch so, so lieb. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you. Thank you.